for your introductory words. So today I'm going to present actually two case studies. One of them is a project by Microsoft, and another one is a smaller scale one that, as Carolina said, involves participation from peasants to some extent. I'll discuss that. But yeah, it provides like a sort of more hopeful note on what can be done and cannot be done with AI. So the title of my talk today is Hubris in the Amazon, the Politics of AI Environmentalism. As Carolina also said, this talk is part of a larger book project in which I examine the intersections between AI and environmental justice. I will begin with an anecdote that inspired this presentation. This video was recorded during my visit to Sumapaz National Park in Colombia, which has a páramo type of ecosystem located at an altitude of over 3,300 meters. On the left, you can see one of the dogs that greeted me when I was arriving, but during my journey by jeep, I had the opportunity to speak with Ivan, a scientist leading an experiment that utilizes AI for plant conservation. Our discussion focused on how the environmental challenges in the area are closely linked to ongoing socio-political conflicts. Occupied by guerrilla groups for decades, new environmental concerns and regulations are emerging in páramos. However, many local peasants consider that newly implemented policies are excessively restrictive and inconsistent with their traditional agricultural practices. As a scientist, Ivan acknowledges the crucial ecological role of páramos. Yet, he also understands the concerns of the local peasants, whose subsistence activities and community life are threatened by the stringent conservation measures. Let me clarify that I'm using the word peasant as a translation from campesino in Spanish, which has a less undermining kind of tone, I would say. But there is no literal translation, so that's why I'm using that word. So going back to Ivan, he hopes that his experiment, which incorporates AI and engages local peasants, will, in his words, help him immerse further into the conflict and, from that angle, better understand the complex social and political context where his experiment is taking place. I'll return to Ivan's experiment later, but I mention it now because his focus on immersion made me wonder how capable are AI for sustainability projects of engaging with the complex realities of the locations they're being deployed. Engagement with local context is not a nice extra to have in ecological initiatives. It is a must. Almost all forms of ecological damage, pollution, biodiversity loss, climate warming are rooted in and exacerbated by underlying social and political conflicts. In recent years, we have seen the emergence of what we can call AI environmentalism, a movement that situates artificial intelligence as a key driver of sustainability and climate action. As of today, major technology companies holding most of AI infrastructure, profits, and expertise, such as Google, Huawei, and Microsoft, are advocating this type of environmentalism. Initiatives carried out or supported by them frequently appear in corporate reports and are highlighted in high-level climate governance forums, including COP meetings. AI environmentalism isn't purely a technical or scientific endeavor. It is not just about making systems more efficient or improving climate models. Increasingly, some AI initiatives hold a humanitarian orientation, seeking not only to tackle environmental challenges, but also to deliver tangible benefits to local communities, particularly in the Global South. Small-scale farmers, fishers, and people displaced by climate change are among those who are expected to directly benefit from these efforts. In this context, two urgent and relevant questions arise. First, what type of environmentalism is being promoted in relation to AI? And second, are there alternatives to the dominant type of AI environmentalism? To address these questions, I will first turn to the wider discussion over AI and sustainability. I will then introduce the concept of hubris, followed by some insights on the Colombian context. Next, I will present two case studies in connection to hubris, Guacamaya and the Common Garden. Finally, I will unpack what I mean by hubristic AI and its wider implications for AI environmentalism. One crucial consideration is that AI environmentalism is emerging in parallel with an intense debate regarding AI and sustainability. Are these compatible? What are the challenges and opportunities? For this, it is necessary to distinguish between two fields. While AI for sustainability focuses on applications for environmental purposes, the sustainability of AI puts a focus on AI's environmental footprint. As many of you are aware, the development and deployment of AI systems depend on a complex supply chain and supporting infrastructure, including mineral extraction and the operation of data centers. These processes have significant environmental impacts, especially in terms of energy and water consumption, as well as carbon emissions. What is sometimes overlooked is that the rapid expansion of the AI supply chain is being contested by groups mobilizing against its environmental impacts. In my previous project, I looked at indigenous resistance to lithium extraction and data center activism in Chile. One emblematic case I looked at involved residents of a working-class district in Santiago opposing a data center project, ultimately leading Google to cancel it. The background image on the slide depicts a protest at the site where the data center was intended to be built. Last year, Time magazine named one of the activists from this movement, Tania Rodriguez, as one of AI's most influential voices. So, to a great extent, today's talk is a response to a common comment I will hear when presenting on lithium mining or data centers. Sebastián, some will tell me, you're only focusing on the negative aspects of AI. What about AI's positive applications? First, I would argue that offsetting AI's environmental impact with positive applications is an anti-ecological way of framing the issue. A sustainable initiative somewhere cannot compensate for ecological damage occurring elsewhere. Environmental harm can be irreversible and can have far-reaching consequences that we may not yet fully comprehend. We should not frame the discussion around whether the environmental benefits of AI outweigh its costs. This way of thinking, prominent in economics and engineering, does not apply when it comes to climate and the environment. Nonetheless, these questions push me to reflect more deeply on AI applications for sustainability. Material surrounding AI for sustainability reflects a strong confidence in technology's capacity to address major environmental challenges. The more I engage with this material, the more the concept of hubris came to mind. In everyday language, hubris is often understood as a synonym for arrogance or excessive ambition. Hubris was a recurring theme in ancient Greek mythology, serving as a cautionary tale against overreach. Whether it involved mortals defying the gods or deities overestimating their own power, hubris frequently functioned as a moral lesson calling to recognize one's limitations. More recently, the concept of hubris has been central to debates about technology's role in addressing the planetary crisis. For some, hubris manifests as an excessive techno-optimism, one that limits the scope of potential solutions while distracting from systemic change. Others consider that, given the sheer scale of the environmental challenges we are facing, some degree of hubris is necessary to pursue ambitious actions. So the link between hubris and technology is not a coincidence. As Sheila Jasanoff argues, modern societies often associate technology with prediction and control. However, in today's context of uncertainty, Jasanoff advocates for technologies of humility, systems designed to accommodate alternative solutions, a broader range of stakeholders, and an acknowledgement of the limitations of technology. Colombian decolonial thinker Sergio Castro Gomez took the notion of hubris beyond the realm of technology. He introduced the concept of zero-point hubris, the belief that one can view the world from a completely neutral, detached standpoint, producing objective knowledge and action plans free from cultural or political bias. This way of thinking shaped how European colonizers understood their own knowledge and technologies, not as products of a specific worldview, but as universally valid and desirable. Such a standpoint turned the global spread of modern science and technology into a moral duty, a mission for the benefit of all humanity. Zero-point hubris also shaped tools like modern maps, such as the one you see in the background. Unlike earlier maps filled with religious meaning, modern ones focus on measurable geophysical features. In doing so, they conceal the perspective of their creators and operate as powerful instruments of global control. Building on these perspectives, I approach hubris as a prescriptive over-reliance in technology with its roots in colonialism. Such an over-reliance is based on the belief that because those developing these technologies are far from the context at stake, such technologies are neutral and hence can easily be deployed across the planet. So detachment is not a problem, but a virtue. It is a means to generate universally valid and desirable tools that ought to be disseminated worldwide for the benefit of humanity and the planet. Colombia offers a particularly relevant site for investigating sustainability efforts. One key reason is its significant stake in climate action efforts. Colombia ranks among the world's most biodiverse nations, hosting an exceptional array of flora and fauna. In addition to this, 43% of Colombian territory is part of the Amazon rainforest. Historically, the Amazon has been perceived as a treasure trove, first as a potential source of gold sought by Spanish colonizers, and more recently as a critical climate regulator due to its alleged carbon storage capacity. The Amazon has also been an inspiration for tech billionaires. In fact, Jeff Bezos chose Amazon to name his company because he thought this rainforest was exotic and different, just like how he wanted his company to be. Bezos also got attracted to the Amazon's scale and thought that having a company with A as a first word would put it first in alphabetical orders. This is such a paradox. A corporation known for fueling consumption and emissions proudly taking the name of one of the planet's most threatened ecosystems. Another sad irony, there is a region within the Amazon that is called Meta, just as Facebook's parent company. But let's go back to the actual Amazon in Colombia. The causes of deforestation in the Amazon are multiple and interdependent. A Colombian activist expressed to me she hoped that deforestation will have a single cause, such as extractivism or monocultures. Instead, the picture is more complex than that. According to the Science Panel for the Amazon, major drivers of deforestation in Colombia include cattle ranching, land grabbing, extractive industries, illicit crop cultivation, infrastructure projects, and the expansion of the agricultural frontier. Páramos, which are situated in the high Andes, have also gained recognition as global carbon sinks. They fulfill the crucial role of water regulators across Colombia, including the Amazon rainforest. I will go back to the Amazon rainforest and Páramos later in this presentation, and these are the locations where the case studies are taking place. As in many regions, environmental harm in Colombia is deeply intertwined with political conflicts. For many decades, guerrilla groups engage in gunpoint conservation, preserving forests to remain hidden from state forces in a way that helped keep deforestation at bay. However, after the reintegration of these groups into civilian life post-2016, deforestation rates surged. In recent years, deforesters have been targeted by Colombian military operations, leading to the criminalization of peasant livelihoods. This phenomenon, termed green militarization, involves the use of military and paramilitary forces, often backed by global north actors, particularly the United States, for environmental protection. In a historic shift, Gustavo Petro, a former guerrilla member, was elected Colombia's first left-wing president in 2022. Petro's approach to sustainable development advocates dialogue with dissident guerrilla factions and local communities. This is a significant change considering Colombia's long-standing militaristic political orientation. Petro's first 2 years saw record loss in deforestation rates, largely attributed to peace talks. More recently, however, some dissident groups have publicly called for continued deforestation as peace talks have stalled. As I have shown, socio-environmental issues in Colombia are multiple and complex. It is within this turbulent context that the two case studies I've examined are taking shape. The two initiatives I will examine today are Microsoft Guacamaya, which aims to address deforestation in the Amazon, and the Common Garden, a small-scale project focused on plant conservation in a páramo. For Guacamaya, my analysis is based on blog posts, promotional videos, and presentations delivered by Microsoft representatives in various forums. For the Common Garden, the empirical material has a more ethnographic character. I conducted 4 interviews with scientists and peasants involved in the project and undertook a 3-day field visit in February. This diagram summarizes the key points I will unpack in the following slides. In the case of Guacamaya, I identified two tenets of AI environmentalism, namely the need for actionable insights and acceleration. These seemingly neutral principles I will show represent expressions of hubris. To highlight their limitations, I have renamed this tenet as partial actionability and removed acceleration. The second case, the common garden, also reproduced, although to a lesser extent, the tenets of actionability and acceleration. However, in this presentation, I will focus on the efforts by members of this project to address hubris. I call their strategy ambient participation. You may already be familiar with concepts such as actionability, acceleration, and participation, which have become common tropes in AI talk. Also, some of these concepts have been crucial for disciplines such as computer sciences and cybernetics. I'll return to this diagram later, but overall, it shows how hubris plays out across the two case studies. So let's begin with Guacamaya. To introduce the project, I'll show you a short video developed by Microsoft.
Introducing Project Guacamaya, a new scientific partnership using AI to speed up data analysis, cutting down a process that took decades to find fast, innovative solutions to preserve the Amazon. Planet Labs provides satellite images, enabling researchers to quickly detect deforestation.
Okay, that was a very short video. But one of the reasons why I chose this case is because of the high visibility it has had in technology and sustainability reports and forums. It is what in marketing jargon is known as a showcase project, a high-profile initiative or product used to demonstrate a brand's capabilities, innovation, or core values. Microsoft has created material of Guacamaya in the form of blog posts and YouTube videos. Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella mentioned it as one of his 2024 stories of AI impact and even visited Colombia himself in 2024. Microsoft has also referred to Guacamaya in its environmental report and its playbook targeted to policymakers. Guacamaya has also had visibility in high-stake technology and climate forums. I don't think it's necessary that I refer to each of them, but this shows the importance that the project has for Microsoft. A guacamaya is a colorful parrot native to tropical regions of Central and South America. Guacamaya is also the name of a collaboration between Microsoft AI for Good division, satellite imaging company Planet, and various governmental and academic actors in Colombia. Launched in 2022, Guacamaya aims to develop AI tools to combat deforestation in the Amazon. One of its stated goals is to build a multimodal language model, essentially a ChatGPT-like tool, capable of processing diverse types of data. This data includes satellite imagery, bioacoustics, and camera traps. Another objective is to accelerate deforestation reporting for research and policy purposes. The first expression of hubris in Guacamaya's documentation is the tenet of partial actionability. Promotional material frequently mentions that by using AI, Guacamaya will produce actionable insights for diverse stakeholders. While some might consider AI as too abstract or high level, actionability highlights AI's capacity to deliver tangible and concrete outcomes. I use the word partial because accounts of how AI analysis will be implemented in practice are not clear or, in some cases, totally absent. Given the project's broad audience, these partial narratives often appeal to Western imaginaries of path to action. Particularly, such imaginaries assume a capable and impartial state which can exercise control in vast areas of the national territory. Let me explain this in more detail. This quote from Microsoft illustrates the rhetoric of actionability. So how does anyone tackle a problem so large and complex as trying to reverse deforestation on a major scale? Enter AI. Thanks to the power of data, machine learning, cloud technology, data science, and applied analytics, experts are developing innovative, collaborative programs that will make recognizing deforestation patterns easier and provide tools for policymakers to use in creating action plans that could stop deforestation in its tracks. This quote presents AI as the perfect tool to address the scale and complexity of deforestation in the Amazon, only that such scale and complexity mainly comprises the fast processing of vast and diverse amounts of data. Closer to the point of actionability, the reference to action plans suggests a direct, seamless link between insights generated by AI and impact on the field. Such a seamless link, however, rarely exists. Most of the time, how monitoring and alerts are deployed is a highly contentious issue crisscrossed by social and political conflicts. One of the few examples of actionability provided by Microsoft refers to roads. This is interesting since roads are highly contentious and political in the Amazon. According to Microsoft, one telltale signal that deforestation or mining is about to occur is the presence of unauthorized roads. If those are spotted in satellite imagery, authorities can be alerted to the activity. On the surface, it sounds simple. Detect a road, alert authorities, solve the problem. In other words, see it, say it, sort it. In reality, road building in Colombia is a politically charged issue. A passage from research by Acero and Thompson shows how road detection often leads to the criminalization of rural populations. In their words, environmental norms have declared community-built roads illegal. If the state invested in rural areas, people would not have to provide their own infrastructure in the first place. To add insult to injury, foreign oil companies regularly fell trees and build roads, with and without the appropriate environmental permits, which are beyond the reach of many locals. As explained so succinctly by Maria, everything peasants do is illegal. As the case of roads illustrates, each potential course of action will inevitably intersect with social conflicts. For this reason, most of Microsoft's claims about actionability are partial, stopping short at spelling out the specific types of actions AI can enable. The second expression of hubris is what I call removed acceleration. Guacamaya documentation frequently claims that AI can speed up research, liberating humans from repetitive tasks and giving them the opportunity to focus on original and creative work. What is striking is that this acceleration is presented as both disruptive and neutral. Disruptive in terms of efficiency, yet neutral in terms of not altering the overall mission or direction of the project. This is because acceleration occurs at the infrastructural level. It enhances the speed and efficiency in the background and hence is not expected to change the project's direction. It is, I would say, removed from the very context and the space of decision-making around deforestation. It is in the back end, supporting those at the forefront of the battle. As I will show, removed acceleration also helps address fears of replacement. AI is presented as a supportive tool, merely helping humans rather than replacing them. Removed acceleration is present in Guacamaya's material in the forms of claims that, with the interaction of AI, humans will be able to achieve more in less time. Here is one such quote from a Guacamaya collaborator. There is a public institution in Colombia called IDEAM that has the mission of constructing maps that specifically localize deforestation each year. They create by hand those results until perfect because this is used for the official statistic in Colombia for deforestation. They spend months of manual work for this method. This is a great example of how AI accelerates and supports the work of conservationists. AI is thus presented as a disruptive, but at the same time, merely supportive type of tool. It can boost efficiency without undermining human agency. Humans are expected to remain at the forefront, only that this time they will not have to conduct repetitive manual work, but rather rely on intelligent technologies. Removed acceleration also comes to the fore in the type of evidence provided by Microsoft to prove Guacamaya's positive outcomes. This data usually points to quantitative figures showing increased efficiency and speed enabled by the interaction of AI. This slide is from a Microsoft presentation. According to it, Guacamaya can process images from Amazonian camera traps 10 times faster than a human. On the left, a biologist, represented by a human icon, can only analyze one video feed at a time. On the right, the same biologist, now supported by AI, which is depicted as a network, can do the same work 10 times faster. In this slide, the visual and textual elements communicate acceleration, but at the same time reassures that the biologist isn't being replaced, but enhanced. The biologist, as you can notice, is there before and after the interaction of AI. The plus sign between the biologist and AI suggests a collaborative win-win relationship. As a whole, this slide illustrates a removed model of acceleration. AI can be revolutionary in the battle against deforestation by speeding up insight generation, but it does so from a background, back-end position without altering the course of action or replacing humans. But how do partial actionability and removed acceleration relate to hubris? Aren't these just technical descriptions of what AI can and cannot do? Actionability and acceleration aren't just technical features, they've become core tenets of AI environmentalism. Furthermore, both rest on key features of hubris. First, both actionability and acceleration underpin bold claims about the potential of AI for sustainability. Action and speed, the narrative goes, is exactly what environmental restoration needs, and AI is a perfect tool for achieving those goals. Second, both tenets promote a detached, high-level approach to environmentalism. Microsoft's language on action stays vague, emphasizing ambition without spelling out what actions or how they are going to be taken. At the same time, no new paradigm is expecting to emerge from AI. Rather, it seems that the status quo will continue to operate, only that under a higher speed. These bold claims and disengaged stance speak directly to the way I define hubris, as an over-reliance on technology rooted in disengagement. I'll come back to this later. The second project I examined is a common garden experiment in the Sumapaz Páramo. This initiative focuses on the conservation of a plant called frailejón. But what exactly is a frailejón? Let me show you a short video. I'm pretty sure you'll like it.
Hello, my name is Frailejón Ernest Perez. I wanted to say hi, yet you don't know me, but I indeed know you. I am your friend, your buddy Frailejón Ernesto Perez. I wanted to say hi, I am a plant, not too colorful, look up the water. It's my profession, I am your friend, your buddy Frailejón Ernesto Perez.
Okay, so this animated series was aired on the Colombian public television in recent years. It had an educational purpose, aiming to raise awareness about the frailejón's vital role. These remarkable plants can turn humidity into water, acting as natural regulators of water flows across Colombia, including into the Amazon rainforest. This animated series transformed the frailejón into a celebrity. Today, it is possible to find street art in Colombian cities depicting this plant. The Common Garden experiment plays a vital role in conserving the frailejón by identifying its unique traits and helping classify its many subspecies. As I mentioned earlier, frailejones grow in páramos, high-altitude ecosystem found only in a few Andean countries. This particular experiment takes place in the Sumapaz Páramo, the largest of its kind in the world. A common garden is a type of scientific experiment where seeds from what appear to be the same species are grown under identical conditions, allowing researchers to observe differences and similarities as they grow. Scientists and students working on the project spend several days a week at a local farm, living and collaborating with the host farmer and interacting with members of the surrounding community. Most of the funding for this research comes from the Missouri Botanical Garden in the US, where the project's lead scientist, Ivan Jimenez, is based. One part of the project uses AI to measure traits like leaf count and plant height. Through 3D modeling, AI is expected to automate the classification and long-term monitoring of frailejones. Due to the relatively small amount of data involved, this project does not rely on any commercial product. Instead, it uses open software and university data storage. As I will show, this initiative also invites participation from local peasants, making it a collaborative effort between academia and the local community. In this specially designed greenhouse, frailejones are closely monitored and moved from pot to pot as they grow. During my stay at the Common Garden, I saw students and farmers counting, cleaning, watering, and repotting frailejones. In recent years, some have argued that a key to tackle the social and economic challenges posed by AI is by ensuring participation from diverse segments of society. In a similar vein, the Common Garden experiment has sought to involve members of the local community. The term ambient participation encapsulates the kind of cooperation between scientists, students, and peasants that I witnessed during my field visit and heard about in the interviews. This form of collaboration doesn't center on the technical aspects of AI, but rather on a shared ambience, sharing meals, accommodation, or joint decision-making. Ambient participation is a pragmatic response to the complexity and opacity of AI systems. As you may be aware, even developers themselves often struggle to fully understand how these systems work. In the Common Garden, this participatory model evolved over time. Initially, peasants were invited for pragmatic reasons, providing seats and local knowledge. Over time, this involvement deepened, giving the scientists insight into the social and political dynamics of Frailejón conservation. But what do I mean by ambience sharing? The Common Garden is located in the backyard of the Penagos brothers' farm, two local peasants who grew up in the area. Due to the lack of commercial accommodation, all visitors, including scientists, students, and myself, stay at this house. Meals and shopping are coordinated collectively, and everyone shares the same roof. Additionally, the environmental conditions of the Páramo, cold temperatures and high altitude, pose significant challenges. Locals take pride in their resilience to these harsh conditions and are always keen to offer advice on how to deal with them. During my stay, this often became a lively topic of conversation, one that also served as a kind of rite of passage for newcomers. One of the sub-projects of the Common Garden employs 3D modeling to automate the measurement of Frailejón traits such as leaf count and height. To make this happen, Jorge Penagos, a local peasant, takes on the task of capturing photographs following strict protocols. In the photo on the left, you can see Jorge alongside a student as they carefully take the necessary shots. The Frailejón plant is put on a rotating tray, while the camera is positioned at a precise distance and height to ensure every measurement is consistent. When I asked Jorge, the peasant, what will happen to the images he was taking, he said they would be stored on the table in case someone wanted to retrieve them later. This shows that Jorge wasn't entirely clear on the wider project he was participating in, or even on the fact that AI was being employed at all. Does this pose a problem? Ivan, the lead scientist, was very willing to admit that the Common Garden would reproduce center-periphery dynamics. He even employed Bruno Latour's concept of centers of calculation to criticize the fact that while data is collected at the farm, it ends up being analyzed elsewhere. However, Ivan also held a more nuanced perspective. As he explained to me, I'm not sure if the peasants are interested in AI. I think there is an exchange of knowledge. It's quite difficult for me to explain a mixture model. I could if I were very good. And we do try. But I think the peasant's interest is more that of a CEO. Let's talk about the general thing. Here, Ivan downplays the importance of understanding the nitty-gritty of how AI works. Instead, peasants may be more concerned with broader project goals than with details around software, hardware, and statistical methods. In this sense, general awareness of the project's purpose and who is involved might represent an alternative form of ensuring participation, even when there is a limited understanding of the technical process. What should we make of ambient participation, and what possibilities as well as limitations does it open up in the context of AI for sustainability? Ambient participation has given place to a desire to get more immersed in the conflicts and political tensions surrounding the regulation of páramos. This desire emerged gradually, as I said, and was not part of the initial plan of the project. While I initially saw this lack of intention as a limitation, it also presents an important advantage. As of today, multiple initiatives are developing participatory AI comprising one or a series of discrete workshops. These workshops have a defined start and end time, and in many cases, the relationships formed during these workshops dissolve once they conclude. Against this backdrop, ambient participation enables a long-term trust-building process. Before the greenhouse was built, scientists and local peasants had been collaborating for years. This situation generated the conditions for the type of ambient sharing I witnessed during my field visit. However, this does not make ambient participation perfect, for sure. One potential issue concerns how ambient sharing might mask deep-seated power asymmetries between the people involved. Neither the good intention of those in the top of the hierarchy could guarantee horizontality. In fact, shared experience does not guarantee equality. Implicit hierarchies on the basis of class and education between the urban and the rural, gender, and other ones might still shape how AI develops. Another issue is that without formalized binding mechanism and procedures, ambient sharing can become tokenistic and merely symbolic. Ambience participation does not make up for the need to establish clear rules ensuring that all parties have equal voice in design and governance choices. Despite these issues, ambient participation represents a valuable approach as it seeks to challenge some of the tenets of hubris. This is because, unlike hubris, the starting point of ambient participation is immersion rather than detachment, and openness rather than certainty. The Common Garden case shows that AI initiatives cannot remain removed from the deeply social and political nature of environmental harm. Immersion also implies setting aside preconceptions and instead remaining open to hearing from all the parties involved. Rather than embracing seemingly universal solutions, a context-based approach sensitive to power asymmetries is allowed to emerge. In this way, ambient participation represents a deliberate, though imperfect, attempt to address hubris and AI environmentalism. Implications of this diagram shall now be clearer. In my empirical exploration, I identified traces of hubris in two projects. In the case of Guacamaya, its guiding principles constitute expressions of hubris. In both partial actionability and removed acceleration, bold claims about AI's role in the battle against deforestation are accompanied by a sense of detachment, by staying either at the high level of impact or at the back-end layer of insight generation. In the case of the Common Garden, hubris manifests as a concern to be addressed. The strategy of ambient participation represents a workaround to the technical intricacies posed by AI. While there are still important limitations, ambient participation is driven by a desire to get more immersed with the social conflicts around conservation. To conclude, let's reflect about the implications of hubristic AI. As we have seen, hubris is permeating the field of AI environmentalism. However, it is important to note that hubris can manifest differently, as either expressions permeating promotional material developed by technology companies or responses by smaller-scale initiatives. As I mentioned at the start, AI environmentalism is gaining traction in major tech and climate forums. Projects being implemented in regions marked by deep political conflict circulate as positive use cases. In these settings, hubris is allowing technology companies to intervene in high-profile issues, like deforestation in the Amazon, without engaging with the underlying socio-political causes. By remaining at a surface level, tech actors avoid the messy, conflictual terrain that scientists, activists, and policymakers have had to navigate for years. That said, my research raises also an important question. There appears to be a persistent binary in AI initiatives. On the one hand, large-scale projects are typically designed from the top down, often overlooking the nuances of the local context. In contrast, smaller-scale efforts are framed as opportunities to collaborate with local communities and support their struggles for environmental justice. Is this divide inevitable? Is it possible to find or even imagine ambitious, large-scale AI projects that do not dismiss engagement and respond to the needs and visions of local contexts? At its core, hubris is tightly tied to technocolonialism. Coined by Mirka Mariano, the concept of technocolonialism captures how digital technologies, particularly AI, when applied in humanitarian contexts, can revive and reconfigure long-standing colonial power relations. In the context I explored, hubris serves as both as a moral and epistemological foundation for technocolonialism. Morally, it legitimizes the belief that technologically advanced actors are uniquely positioned to determine what constitutes progress for others. Epistemologically, hubris claims that there is nothing problematic about carrying out technologically driven interventions without further engagement with social and political contexts. One related concept to hubris is that of technosolutionism, which refers to the belief that technologies such as AI can solve deeply structural and complex problems, or even that the problem they seek to solve is not a problem at all. In effect, Hubris does reflect the over-reliance on technology highlighted by techno-solutionism. However, in addition to this, hubris also emphasizes a detached form of normativity. Hubris goes deeper than techno-solutionism, as it is linked to a long-standing pattern rooted in European colonialism, an excessive faith in modern, often technological solutions assumed to be universally beneficial, even in contexts that differ from those in which those solutions were originally envisaged. Where critiques of AI's environmental impact have largely focused on its footprint, especially data centers and critical minerals, we must also scrutinize the application layer of AI. We still need to develop deeper and more realistic understandings of what AI can and cannot do for humanity and the Earth, approaching this from a position that privileges openness rather than certitude and engagement rather than detachment. So I leave you with one of the dogs that chased me when I left the Páramo. Thank you so much.